So I think we're live. I'm going to let all of you catch up for a moment. There we are. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so glad that you are here. So what's happening right now is that people, and we've heard from Iceland, we've heard from Houston, we've heard from Massachusetts already. People are going to be coming on. So in the next couple minutes, I'm going to start talking and delivering part of what we've all come here to learn. But I'm also going to be giving people an opportunity to make their way here. Now, I'm realizing that every time you bump the table, I go jiggling all about. So you must be very gentle. So that voice that you hear is Lisbeth. She is one of the trainers.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, she says. And over here is Sienna, who is another trainer.
Hi.
So through the course of the next hour, you will be hearing mostly from me, but you will also hear occasionally from either wing, Lisbeth or Sienna. There are 5 trainers that are a part of the How to Be Super Violet Crown Summer Camp. 3 of them are in Austin, Texas, and it's the 3 that are right here. And 2 of them are in Vermont. And so Francesca and Meredith are there. And they'll be much busier once we begin the summer camp, which starts on the 18th of this month, very, very soon. So how about we start with an introduction? My name is David. I'm David Sewell McCann. And those of you who are familiar with the stories are probably very familiar with this voice that you're hearing right now. Some of you have been to Facebook Live events where I've told stories live. Some of you have paid attention to the newsletter where you've seen photographs of me and the other trainers, and definitely of Lisbeth and our kids. There are plenty of pictures of them there as well. So 8 years ago, Sparkle Stories?
Yes, 8 years ago in the fall.
The fall of 8 years ago, 2010, we launched Sparkle Stories. Before that, I was an elementary school teacher for a number of years. And it was Lisbeth's idea, and she created Sparkle Stories, and I was in charge of telling the stories, of landing and telling the stories. And since then, our business has grown, and our story base has grown to well over 1,000 stories. So we have many. Now, in addition to telling stories, I also teach. I continue to teach, but mostly I teach grown-ups like you how to do what I do, how to tell this particular kind of story. And recently I've been getting into this idea of master stories. So I'm starting to work with schools and businesses and therapists and most recently local governments on how to find their master story and then how to use it for their community. So this is our first online webinar that we will be starting on the 18th, this summer camp. And that is for your children. This is for you. So any children that are looking right now, I'm talking to you, and it's time to go to bed, or it's time to go, depending on where you are, time to go outside and play, time to do something else, because this is for the grown-ups. I'll give you a moment. Yes? No? I'm afraid you do have to go. Yes. No, I can see you. All right. There you go. Great. So I would love to hear from you for a moment as you're coming on. Some of you are already doing this, but if you have a moment, just tell us where you're calling in from. Where are you? Where are you watching this? Some of you, it's the middle of the night. Some of you, it's very early in the morning, which is remarkable. Isn't that remarkable? And here we all together talking about superheroes and storytelling. So I would love to hear some of those locations from either of you, so I can map them.
Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Michigan, excellent.
Victoria.
Sonoma County, California.
Excellent. I've taught in both of those places.
Sedona, Arizona.
Haven't taught there, but that would be fun.
Can people hear us? Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Central Minnesota.
By the way, we just had a question from Lisbeth. Can you actually hear them?
Houston.
Houston, right down the road.
Bloomfield, New Jersey.
Bloomfield,
Oh,
New
good, they can hear
Jersey.
us.
Excellent, and they can hear.
Okay.
Great.
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. Feel free in this next section to just shout those out as we.
Reykjavik, Iceland.
Reykjavik. There are so many ferries there.
Yay. Oklahoma, Northampton,
Wonderful.
Los Angeles. Yay, that's
Excellent.
so great.
So I'm gonna talk about something else for a moment.
That's great.
And what I'd like to talk about
go ahead,
is superheroes, because one of the questions early on is that people were wondering if we were going to align ourselves with the superhero culture that is so popular right now and has been for decades at this point in mass media. So the comic books, and then most recently with these huge blockbuster movies. So I just want to say a couple words about that. And the quick answer is no, but there is a connection. And the connection is in mythology. It is in the big stories. I made mention a moment ago about master stories. Well, master stories often have these very grand, larger than life characters in them. And they have a very important role for a community. They give us things to aspire to. They are the heroes and the heroines, and they are the great kings and queens, and they are the gods and the goddesses. And so they have these gifts. I'm worried about the jiggling. How will we solve
I'll
this?
pull this in my
Okay. They have these talents and gifts and powers that they use to enact large moments in the master story, the narrative, the overarching narrative that's there. And they are also representations of people and groups of people that are very powerful. The people in charge have often developed these incredible powers that people you and I know. And over time, through the narrative, those have gotten bigger and bigger and grander, and then suddenly we have characters that can fly and have superhuman strength and are there to serve us, the common person. So that's kind of what the superheroes of today, their role in society is to give us that. That's really the best part of going to those movies, for as an adult at least, is to see what can they do? How do they use their powers? In what way do they serve? In what way do they sacrifice? Now, I do have issue with a lot of the stories. They're fine for what they are, but that's not what we're doing with the How to Be Super Violet Crown stories. I'll talk just a little bit about those stories in a moment. So now the question that I have for you is, some of you have watched the Avenger movies. Some of you have watched Black Panther and Wonder Woman, and some of you even read comic books. I would love for you to let us know your favorite superhero. And it doesn't just have to be the pulp superheroes. You can go back into the old mythologies, Greek goddesses and gods. Go all the way back to Mesopotamia. If Gilgamesh is your man, we want to hear about that. So start to write in. I'd love to know what sort of group we have in terms of who inspires them, who gets them excited, and who are you aspiring to be more like. There's a delay, so it'll be a moment.
Morpheus from Sandman.
Oh yes, I know the Sandman. We have some other superheroes coming in.
Yeah, your crowd may not be Robin Hood. Yes.
Well, that's really interesting, because Robin Hood, some say, is the first superhero, because he dressed up, he wore a costume, and he wore a costume to remain anonymous, and that is actually one of the trainings is all about, well, what is that? What is anonymity, and why? Why is there a costume that some of these superheroes will wear? Dan says
Gandalf. And Zach agrees.
Yes, we all agree. Gandalf is indeed a superhero. especially with that staff. I'm a big fan of Gandalf.
I see the Black Panther movie, but it was the women. They were so strong, independent. They knew
Mhm.
themselves and had total
Mhm.
agency in their lives.
Yes, and spoiler alert: if you look into the comic books that come after the ones that the movie was based on, it's all women. It's all the women.
Cool.
That's the focus.
Kath, go ahead. Go ahead, Sienna.
We got. I really related to your take on Gaia.
Well, and so I'm assuming that listener is tapping into the full arc of the How to Be Super series, the full 4 books, and I'm sure that there are many listeners that have listened now to all 4 books. They are complete. You can listen to them. This camp is focused on the first, so it gives little hints into the future of what's coming in book 2 and 3 and 4. But for the purposes of this camp, we're focused on the events of the Violet Crown.
Cool. So we've got a third for Gandalf. We have Rorschach from The Watchmen, and we have
Big Rorschach fan.
Fred Kluth says Nightcrawler from the X-Men. Kathleen says the whole shebang. She was referring to she's the one that made the comment on Gaia. And I Am Marvel, all of them, she said. And Liliana Rivera says Joan of Arc.
Oh, there we are.
Superhero.
There we are for sure. Well, that's actually good to know, because now we have in that pantheon that's been laid out, we have traditional superheroes, but we also have these folks like Rorschach and Morpheus that really climb into the darkness as well. So, and we don't use the term darkness in the How to Be Super series, nor do we, of course, use that in the summer camp. But we do go to places of striving. We do go to the places where we are currently a little held back, and we want to move forward into a place where we're in a place of insecurity and vulnerability. And that is a very important component to what we're going to do together today, and a version that is for the children. Okay, so let's do an overview of what we're going to do in the next chunk of time. So the goal of this time that we're going to have together is that I'll give you a context of the summer camp for the children, and I will run you through basically the first 8 trainings and give you a taste of each of them, so that you can then, in a very homeopathic way, experience what the children are experiencing, so that you'll have the proper context to then go into what we take up in trainings 9 and 10, where we actually identify the superpower that we're going to be working on. Now, I'm hoping that you have downloaded the lists. You have strengths and talents, and then you have strivings, which, if you've looked over it, is very similar to the strengths and talents, but there's a reason for that. And then the list of common superpowers. I'm going to ask that if you haven't looked at the list of common superpowers, don't, because it's best if that sneak up on you. So just kind of shuffle that off to the side for a moment, and we're going to start with the other 2. So take a moment to download those and print those out if you haven't. If you don't have them, that's okay. I will go over some of this with you. So, and then at the end, we'll have time for questions about what we did, about how it works, and then about the summer camp in general. So first, a little bit about the stories. Someone mentioned I Am Marvel. I Am Marvel is a story that came to me actually while I was still teaching. And it came to me in a very specific way, and I'm going to bring it up because it is what essentially gave birth to the Prime Power Protocol. I was downtown. I was downtown in Keene, New Hampshire, and it was before I was going to teach 5th grade. And what happened was that I was in a coffee shop. A version of this is in the I Am Marvel story, but here's the actual thing that happened. I was in a coffee shop, and I witnessed something quite incredible. There was a man that was sitting outside. He had dark glasses on. He was moving very slowly as he drank his coffee. There was a grace and almost robotic quality to it. He was a curious fellow, and he caught my attention, and I watched him. And then I noticed down toward the end of the road, there was another man that was walking with purpose, with kind of frenetic energy down the road, and was advancing on the fellow who was sipping his coffee very slowly. And as he walked by, what I saw was the tight fellow who was walking with such urgency, who was smoking a cigarette, literally threw his cigarette at the fellow who was sitting in the chair drinking his coffee. And this is where it became remarkable. I mean, that's already remarkable. It's a very offensive thing to do. But the fellow sitting in the chair brushed the cigarette and took another sip of coffee, utterly unfazed. And that impressed me. What just happened? So, the Prime Power Protocol has 4 steps. The first is keep your eyes open, which is what I did. I kept my eyes open, and step 2, I believed what I saw. A most remarkable thing happened. I believed in it. And then began step 3. I took that seriously as a thing that happened in reality. And I began to make sense of it. And I advanced on the situation. I went outside. I sat nearby. I wanted to gain more information. And then I saw, driving by, was the fellow that had just thrown the cigarette, driving by. And these 2 guys had one more interaction. And off he went. And then his car stopped. His car wouldn't work. It suddenly wouldn't work. What happened? So, at that point, I let go of it. I let go of what happened. It was too remarkable. But sometime later, it occurred to me what happened. And what happened was this. The fellow sitting, sipping his coffee, was what I called a sentinel or a warden. He was watching, and he was watching over me. The fellow that was walking by was what we call rogues in that story, and he was looking to take power from me. The fellow that was protecting me was successful, and then when the car went by, he used his superpowers of electro-telekinesis to stop that man's car. Now that's a pretty imaginative solution to what had just happened. But I created 4 steps, and I launched in my imagination a series of stories that led us to these 4 books and to this summer camp right here. It also gave me 4 steps that I use every time I create a new story. I pay attention, I open my heart and believe something remarkable that my attention leads me to. I do something brave, which is the third step. And what that bravery is I turn it into a story. I speak out loud once upon a time. And then I tell no one, which is I do not identify with it. I do not brag about it. I do not say that this is all about me and say, isn't this wonderful, what just happened, etc. Instead, I let go and I allow the story to tell itself. Those 4 steps, those 4 protocols are at the foundation of this summer camp. And we're going to go tick through those pretty quickly in just a moment. A word about the age. Now, these stories we said were for 9 and up. Then a lot of you found that your 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds were really enjoying the stories. We still say that the stories are 9 or up, but we have adapted the summer camp for those younger children. Here is why it's 9 and up. There is a special thing that happens when you're 8, 9, 10 years old. Now, versions of this have happened when you're younger, but I'm speaking from a child development point of view. What happens, especially at that age, is there is this impulse to separate, to take a big step of separation from your caregivers, from the parents and your parents or the teachers, etc. You take a step away so that you can begin to develop self-reliance, so that you can begin to think and feel as an individual in the world that needs to follow through on what they say they're going to do and take responsibility for their life. Now, they're only 8, 9, and 10, so this isn't like graduating from college. It's just a step. It's a practice, but it's a big one. There's another one that happens when you're 6 or 7. And there's another one that happens when you're 3.5. They're all steps away from this fundamental connection that children feel with the all that is, and then feel with their parents, and then feel with their community until they become, maybe around 21, maybe a little older, fully fledged individuals in this world. But they don't do it all at once. They do it in steps. This summer camp and these stories are written to give children agency, to find their superpowers so that they can confidently take that step. Not out of the house, but to actually take responsibility for their life. You said you would clean the room. I see that you didn't clean the room. I'm going to use my superpower to follow through with that, because that's how I become super. How to be super is how to be yourself and take responsibility for who you are. And who you are is wonderful. So that's the ultimate message in the How to Be Super series, and it's definitely what we're doing in the summer camp. So, without further ado, I think we should get into it. Okay. All right. Oh, perfect. That's exactly the time that I was hoping it would be. I'm going to take a quick sip of this throat coat tea. Thank you, Mike. And I would like you now, adults, because there are no children that are watching this, adults, I would like you to think back, even feel what it was like when you were 8, 9, 10 years old. I want you to think of memories. I want you to feel the environment. Perhaps it is in your 3rd grade classroom. Perhaps you know exactly the house that you lived in when you were that age. You know who your friends were. You know what sort of activities you did. Maybe you went on a very unique holiday. I want you to recall back to that time. And from this point forward, I'm still going to be talking to adults. And I should clarify, how you've experienced me thus far is because I'm talking to adults. When I talk to children, it's a very different experience. I've taught elementary school for a number of years. And so I know the difference between talking to adults and what it's like to talk to a 6-year-old and what it's like to talk to a 9-year-old. So that being said, you now will become 9-year-olds, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to lead you through those first 8 by giving you tiny little exercises, which are similar to what I do with the children. Some of them are not at all similar. They're better for people your age, but their aim is to get you into that frame of mind. So first, we're going to go through training 1 and 2, which have to do with protocol 1, keep your eyes open. In other words, how to pay attention. And in order to do that, you need to know where you are. In the trainings for the children, we make maps. That helps us find out where we are. For you, we're going to go through a very brief centering exercise, body awareness exercise, which will land you wherever you are fully. Many of you have done things like this. But what I would like you to do is, you can close your eyes if you'd like. I'd like you to feel your feet. Feel them in your shoes. Feel them on the floor. Feel them tucked underneath you. Wherever your feet are, I want you to sense them. See if you can feel every single toe. And once you can, I want you to let that awareness cover your entire foot and into your ankle. And then, as if you can see your feet and legs changing a different color, the color to your awareness, and let that color go soaking up your legs until your entire legs and feet are in your consciousness. You can feel them. Feel them in your pants or shorts, or feel them where you're sitting. Feel everything about your legs and your feet. Now do the same with your fingers. Every single finger and thumb. Feel them all. If you need to, wiggle them. Where are they placed? Are they on your legs? Are they leaning back on that cozy couch? Feel where they are, and then let your awareness go into your wrists and your arms, elbow, all the way up to your shoulders. Good. Now we're going to stop there. You can certainly let your awareness continue on to the rest of your body, but usually this is enough. Arms and legs will place you here. Now we're going to use our other senses, and I want you to listen. And in that quiet, which will follow in just a moment, I want you to count how many things you can hear. Go ahead. Beautiful bird outside right now. Good. Do the same thing with smells. See if you can identify even one smell, wherever you are. Tea. Taste. Depending on if you've just had breakfast or dinner or a very, very late night snack, Iceland. See if you can get taste in your mouth. Then you're going to pay soft attention with your eyes. That same sort of buzzing, comfortable, relaxed feeling you're going to put into your eyes and not focus on one thing. You're going to let your eyes in your gaze wander. Just take it all in. You're not fixing on anything in particular. You're just noting things. So this is what in the exercise we call, or in the trainings we call soft attention. And I do it a little differently with the children, but I try to get them into this space where they are capable of noticing a great many things, especially things that others might miss. And in those first two trainings, we fulfill step 1 of the Prime Power Protocol, keep your eyes open. Now we're going to move on to 2, and that is training 3 and 4. In that, we focus on feelings. So we have quite an extensive process that we go through to really learn how to identify and be aware of what feelings we're feeling at any particular point. But it's very good information for not just children, but everyone to know what they're feeling and then perhaps how that feeling came to be. What I'd like you to do right now is you're going to do a little exercise, which I should have given you forewarning, but if you can get a pencil or a pen, and maybe on the back of one of those documents that you printed out, I want you to write down a few things. Just give you a moment, and I'll check in with the other 2 trainers to see if there's anything that I need to know.
No, it's all quiet. Everybody's doing their process.
It's very, very calm here in Sparkle headquarters. But hopefully now you have a pen or a pencil. And here's what I'd like you to do. Now, this isn't an exercise that the children do. This is just for you. Begin to write down titles of stories that were important to you when you were a child. Those don't just have to be written books. Doesn't have to be fairy tales. Certainly includes those. It doesn't have to be children's books. It can be television shows. It can be movies. It can be songs. But write down as many as you can. Your 8, 9, 10-year-old self. What was important to you when you were that age? For instance, for me, Wizard of Oz was very important. Now, up to a certain age, I could only watch until the poppies because the rest my parents thought were too scary. So for the longest time, I thought Wizard of Oz ended in the poppies. Great. But that was very important to me. So much so that I memorized that story up until that point. So what was important to you? Write down as many as you can. And if it gets into your early teenage years, that's fine. Or younger than that, that's also fine. Just stories that were a part of your childhood. Christmas movies, Christmas books. These can be fairy tales that you can recall. Maybe they're Walt Disney movies that you really particularly loved. Write as many down as you can. Give you just another moment. And then I have an exercise for you. All right. So I use the word affection with the children with step 2. So step 2 is called believe it. And here is how it's connected to affection. We are going to go from here to here in the way in which we navigate our decisions and make our decisions and decide what we're going to do. What that means is we're going from thinking and analyzing and pondering and considering down into a space that is more about our feelings and has to do perhaps with faith, that has to do with believing things that maybe don't make sense up here, but have an effect on our heart. And affection, the way in which I define it to the children and the way in which I want to define it to you, is not so much about liking and disliking. It's not your favorite things. It's where you are moved. It's where your heart seems to open. And that may be towards something that traditionally you don't like much. And the example I give in the training is possums. I'm not a fan of possums. I'm not attracted to them. I don't think they're something that an animal that I want to spend a lot of time with. It's not that I hate them or don't like them. It's just I'd rather be with a dog or maybe even a hedgehog. But possums, not so much. But then if I can imagine a possum that's walking with a limp, suddenly my heart opens. I'm curious. I'm worried. What happened to the possum? Does the possum need my help? I am affected. I feel affection. I am moved by the possum. That's what we're talking about. So what I want you to try to do, and this is a bit of a leap, is I want you to open your heart, and I want you to use your heart as you look over that list that you just created. Look at all of those titles of stories, and one of them is going to make your heart open a little wider than the rest. One of them is going to be so tied with your affection that for reasons that you don't understand, you are going to say that one. Go ahead and do that. And when you've found the one that's that one, I want you to circle it. Go ahead and do that. Good. That's good information. We'll come back to that. So on the same page or a new page, the back of another, you're going to write some more things. And what I'd like you to do is to think back again when you were 8 or 9 or 10. And we are now entering into the third week of the trainings, into training. What numbers are that? Third week is 5 or 6? It's 5 and 6. And here we get in to do something brave, and we learn about what courage and bravery is. And it's not the big things, it's actually the small things. And that's what I want you, well, they're actually, even the small things are very big, but these are not like fear of heights, and these are not conquering, facing a dog that you're afraid of. We're not touching those. Those have to do with safety, and those have to do with family culture. The ways in which we are being brave and courageous in the training, and the way in which I want you to, is to think of things in your life, and in this case, when you were 8, 9, or 10, that would have benefited you, that you want, but your feelings are holding you back. For example, your school was going to put on a play, and you wanted to audition for the play, but you're too frightened of what the director and maybe other children might think. So your anxiety and fear has held you back from something that you want. So to be courageous or brave in that context is to face that worry and fear. Go ahead and audition. It's that kind of thing. So think back to when you were 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, your childhood. Who were you like? And where were your fear feelings? Where were you feeling shy, timid, anxious, worried, fearful, scared? What parts of your life were you holding back because of those feelings when you know things would have been better for you had you moved across them into there? Think about those and write them down. Thinking of an example of when I decided, I was a little older for this, but when I decided not to run a race because I was fearful that I might lose, so I never even ran it. I can remember that really clearly because I did not have an experience because of my fear. when I could have had an experience. And the fact that I still remember it so well means I have a regret. So that kind of thing is what we're looking for. Elizabeth and Sienna, if you have one that you can think of, I'm all ears.
I can think of being in school. I never spoke up or asked questions.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And how that limited me all throughout elementary, middle school, high school. And then when I hit college, I just didn't even know how to do it because I had never learned to speak up for myself or to ask what I was interested in.
So that's a big one. And that's an example that we use in the trainings is not asking for help. Your shyness holding you back with that.
Yeah, I definitely had fear of like talking to new people who I didn't know super well.
Yes,
So
new people that you
I
didn't know well.
making new friends out of my friend group.
Yes, you have your comfort group and moving outside of that to make new friends. So those sorts of things, I want you to write down as many of those as you can. That whole list is going to be relevant a little bit later, so hold on to that. Now we have an experience for the children, but since our time is limited, we're going to be working on everything that leads towards the superhero or superpower exercise that we'll be doing soon.
Pause for a second and see if everybody's caught up with you, because you're asking folks to do some digging, and I want to make sure everybody is still with you. In fact, some folks are sharing.
Saying, wait.
Well, no, they're sharing some of their fears, like naming what they wanted or afraid to ask where the bathroom was and wetting themselves at a birthday party. And there's some,
yes.
I was bullied, and my fear of standing up for myself kept me from a great deal of experiences. There's some, I just wanted you to hear some of these.
Oh, thank you for that.
I didn't do most things out of fear, no single one stands out.
Right. And as parents, of course, we don't want that for our children. We want them to have the opportunity to identify what their feeling is, be with it, figure out if it's a feeling that needs to be acted on or if it's just to be felt or discussed with you. And then if it leads to doing something brave that you and your child believe would be a brave thing and would benefit your life and potentially other people's lives, well, it's superhero time to do that brave thing. So that's definitely part of the superhero training camp. So now what can happen? Oh, thank you for that light. That was nice. What can happen once we start to do brave things is we feel powerful. It feels good to do something brave. We feel filled with strength, and we want to do it again. And we want to do another brave thing. Here is where the fourth protocol comes in, and this is with 7 and 8. Yes,
7 and 8.
Trainings 7 and 8. We then explore humility. This is a very tricky concept for a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old. But we make it very straightforward that you now have power. You have done something brave, you feel that power. When you are using that power, later on when you have developed and identified and developed your superpower, when you use those powers to help others and not make it about bringing attention to yourself, when you do the right thing because the right thing is a good thing to do, that is using your superpowers with humility. That's what we mean by the words "tell no one." And we're very clear with the children. Tell no one is not about keeping secrets. Keeping secrets is never a good idea. It's about basically not bragging. Once you've done that brave thing, one has a tendency to want to broadcast that it happened so that people will praise you. Totally understandable. We've all done it. But after a while, what happens is you start to do things in order to get that praise. And so one of the gifts of this summer camp is to actually learn that it does feel good to do these good deeds just to do them and not to bring attention on yourself. So remember back, and you don't have to go to when you're 8, 9, or 10. You can go to yesterday, because I can think of something right away. Instances in your life in which you did something good. You did something that helped people and then talked about it. It's not a bad thing. I just want you to identify what it felt like after you talked about it, after you popped it on Facebook, or after you went home and wanted to contact a good friend and tell them this good deed that you did. Did it make the good deed feel better? Or in my case, suddenly you feel like, ooh, just made this about me. When I did a nice thing for somebody and I could have left it there, I just made this about me tooting my own horn. And I've become very aware since these books that I will do that. And I don't like the feeling that comes while doing that. So take a moment, think about that. And now that we have such community, you're welcome to share and tell us a little bit about some of those instances. And can the two of you think of?
Sure. Let's see if I can think of one. LS wrote intrinsic versus seeking praise approval, and Zach says I do that all the time. Marcella says, yeah, it felt less.
Yes, that's a good way to say it. It feels less. It pulls back on it.
I wish I could think of a good example, but I can't think of one because I don't tend to do that as much. Sometimes I think I should do it more. No, talk about the good things I'm doing.
In our household,
I don't tend to do it.
You hold much of the humility. It's definitely
although maybe
I'm bragging
for me. Just saying I don't
there it is. There it is.
Javier Joyce says it tarnishes the experience of helping.
It can. It certainly can.
It's one thing to sort of share when you're excited about a good thing that you did, but it's another thing to share it because you want people to like you or love you or get attention or get likes on social media. And
well, that's the distinction in the stories, and definitely in the summer camp, is there is a place for talking about it, for sure. There's a place to understand what happened so that you can be more effective in the future. There's a place to talk about your strengths and your talents so that you can properly use them. But the distinction is, where are those instances in which you are trying to get more attention and power? And in the books, that's kind of the realm of what we call the monsters. That gets developed in later books a little bit more, and we learn to actually have a lot of compassion for the monsters. I think it's time for us to move into where's my lighting? I think we're okay.
You're doing all right.
Okay, great. It's time for us to get into the meat and potatoes of why we've all gathered here. So I want you to take out that first list. Please take out the strengths and talents. And I want you to study that. Study it, however, as your 8, 9, 10-year-old. I want you to think back to when you were that age and circle or add to the list all the things that you were really good at, and be as detailed as you like. If it is crocheting, put that down. If you could jump really high, put that down. But you can use that list to help you identify as many of those as possible. Take a moment to do that. And I'm realizing I need my binder because I can't.
It's right behind you.
Oh, okay. All right. So for me, back in those days, I was actually a pretty creative kid. And I actually really loved to learn things, even though I was most of the time very nervous in school. I actually loved my teachers very deeply and attended to them and loved to learn. I was very open-minded to new things, even if I was more cautious about actually doing them. I liked to act. I thought that I was pretty good at acting. I was especially good at monkeys. Very good at doing monkeys and lizards. I'm tempted to do a monkey and lizard right now, but I'm not going to.
I was going to say you should.
Yeah. No, we don't need to do that right now. And I actually, no surprise, but thinking back, I realized that I used to tell stories. I used to make stuff up, actually. I used to tell stories to people in ways that weren't very honest, but I would make very elaborate concoctions to my friends and tell them things like, well, speaking of monkeys, I would tell them that I have a chimpanzee at home, and then I would get into great detail of the name of my chimpanzee and all all of that. So
We have a comment saying, is it critical we go back to our younger self, or can we think of our current age self?
you're welcome to think of your current age self. Part of the magic of this is that you will realize what has happened since then, but it's completely fine to do current self. My hearing was actually pretty strong when I was young. It's still pretty good, but I could hear things in a crowded room that was going on, and I would be able to pick out conversations very well. So let's bring that to a close. And you've got a solid list right there. I would like to move on to the list of strivings, and you'll notice that many of the same words are there. There's a few other words that are added to it. These are the things, you know, oftentimes when people do a list of strengths, the opposite is weaknesses. That's not accurate to what we're doing. There are weaknesses, but they're particular weaknesses. They are the things that you're not very strong doing, but want to. That's the key thing, because I will never be good at skydiving, because I'm never going to skydive. That's not going to happen. So I'm fine with that weakness. But there are other things that continue to be important to me that I'm not very strong in. Foreign languages. I would like to be stronger in foreign languages. I'd like to know lots of them and be able to speak them. So go through, circle the ones that are relevant. I went back to when I was 8, 9, and 10. So bravery was a big issue for me. I wanted to be brave. Didn't feel brave. I felt very fearful a lot of the time. And courage was something that I really wanted. I wanted to be a leader, but I was shy. I was timid. I didn't want to step forward, but I could feel that it would be fun to lead. I wanted to lead, but that was a weakness. That was where I was striving. I also had, I mentioned before, I had an issue with honesty. I would make stuff up all the time, and it was often in order to get attention, in order to get out of things, classic dishonesty to protect myself. And I did circle debate because I had a lot of opinions, but I didn't always step forward to offer them. And so you can see a theme there of the things that are important to me that I held back, that were strivings, that I wanted to be better. And I can say that I have gotten better on all of those. And they have benefited me greatly, and they are very connected to my list of superpowers. I'm open to hearing either strengths or strivings from any of you that wish to share.
Yeah, let's do that. I often spoke a rosy truth, says Dan.
Oh,
well
a rosy
said.
truth.
Of course, they can see each other's comments. I'm realizing.
And you know what? I'm noticing the time, so I'm going to actually move on.
Okay, well, what, you want to give it just one more minute?
Sure, sure. I'll give it another moment if anybody wants to offer.
Because you have one more section, right? And then we can answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm okay answering questions a little longer.
Okay. Perseverance, says Marcelo.
Strength?
Marcelo, is that a strength or a striving? Kathleen says, I was very good at knowing what people needed, but I was too afraid to act. Cindy says, spirituality, as my parents were amicable, but not aligned.
Interesting.
Erica, it is interesting to see how much I have grown. Yeah.
Yeah. How about that? Well, your children are right in that space. So it's a great time to be taking these sorts of lists and talking about them, giving an opportunity to really do that. Now, if they're in the summer camp, I'm going to ask you to maybe hold off on that, because it'll be much more effective within the context of all the work that we lead up to that. So as much fun as it would be to share all this with your kids tomorrow, if they're going to do the summer camp, I'm going to ask you to hold off. That would be great. So
Marcelo said perseverance is striving.
Striving.
Dan
right.
Ziegler says, I was always leader of the team. And Jack says, it is funny how they all connect. I wanted to be brave and kind, but often participated in unkindness because I was not brave enough to stand up to
Yes.
people being mean.
Mm-hmm.
And Jay Bell says, I strive for focus and neatness.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
It is remarkable, and especially what we're going to do now is tying all those things together. So before we look at the list of common superpowers, what I'd like you to do is to go back, see that thing that you circled, which is the story that your heart opened to. That's relevant. I want you to keep that in mind when you're going into this next process. Then I want you to go over the those pain points in your life, those moments where you wanted to do something brave and were held back, all the different instances there. And I want you to then look over your strengths, scan them, look over your strivings, scan them. You're going to put all of those words, all of those images, all of those concepts into a bowl. You're going to have that energetic bowl before you. And you're going to actually have it right by your heart, because we're going to use step 2, believe it, where we use affection. And we're going to go down that list of common superpowers. And I would like you to circle the ones that you want to have. I want you to circle the ones that feel like, yes, those are the superpowers that I want to claim and develop and strengthen. So go ahead and do that. And if you can keep it to between 3 and 5, that would be best. Take a moment to do that. Read them over. And I'll give you some time. And as you choose them and you want to share them with us, go ahead and put those into the comments. I'll tell you that big ones for me were illumination, future sense, truth detection, and camouflage. You take those, you can feel a theme beginning to form. Sienna, Elizabeth, you remember some of yours?
I have, well, it's not called heartworm, it's the warm one.
It's warming.
Warming. And I have spin as mine. And I have manifestation as mine.
Manifesting.
Yeah, manifesting.
I had super smell
Mm-hmm.
and improve
Mm-hmm.
and fabricate.
And fabricate. Nice. I'm going to tell you a little something about this list that's right here. I'm not going to tell you too much. These are very, very specific. And they align with power groups that are based on particular superheroes that are grounded in the characters in the How to Be Super series, the Olympians. They relate to those. That's all I'm going to say. Because that revelation that happens in 11 and 12, and how we start to claim that power group and let it influence our service to the world, becomes really powerful. Anyone feeling bold to share?
Oh, I don't know if you've asked. So ask. Anybody be willing to
Yeah,
share?
I would love to hear. And then we'll have some time for questions. I'll say a little bit about the camps, and then... And actually, if some of you want to take an extra step and look at the superpowers that you've chosen that you want to develop, 3 to 5, and if you want to pick one of them in particular that you want to really focus on in your life, then you can develop a superhero name that is connected to that. So if you come off the top of your head with a superhero name that you want to share with us, I would like you to own that superhero name. That's something that we do in training number 13, I want to say.
Let me share some of these.
Okay.
Kristen says healing beauty. Cindy Davis says safe make, grounding, and empower. Zach says manifesting, grounding, honoring, and healing beauty.
A lot of Zeus there.
Right.
Yep.
A lot of Zeus. Those are a lot of Zeus ones, aren't they?
No, just those, whoever the last one was.
Manifesting, grounding, honoring, and healing beauty.
little bit of Apollo there.
Do you want to share some of our superhero names? We're going to send out the information about the trainers next week. Oh, LS says, my 3 are illumination, steadfast, heart thinking. Happy Joy says grounding, emoto scan, heart thinking.
Nice.
J Bell says manifesting, decisiveness, and fabricate.
Nice.
Amy says manifesting, fabricate, illumination, music mind, and connection.
No, wonderful.
I haven't met a music mind yet. Erica says safe make, connection, shield. And Dan says illumination, possibility, calculation.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. So in the last few minutes, let me just tell you a little bit about the camps. Most of you are probably aware of this. The experience that we've just had is probably most similar to the masterclass. Now, we will have these kinds of interacting forums with all 3 camps. There's just 1 for the basic camp. There's 2 for the Training Plus, and then there's 4 for the masterclass. And then in addition with the masterclass is that there is time one-on-one with me. So I would then be able to go a little deeper with those particular campers. And our numbers are pretty good with the masterclass. We've got a good group. But I think there's space for still some, isn't there? Okay, great. So if your child is interested in the master, or if you're interested in them having the master class where they have one-on-one with me, and we actually go over their work. They share their work with us, and we go over it. And it's pretty comprehensive. The Training Plus is a lot more interactive than the basic, because we have these forums on every single one of the trainings where the children can talk about their experience, can ask questions, and we can interact with them on those forums. Not so with the basic. Now the basic camp is still solid, and they will get all the curriculum and then have the one live interaction with me. And I'm thinking, am I missing anything else?
Did you talk about the forums?
Right. Yes, the forums are for Training Plus and the Master Class. And then the Training Plus and the Master Class extends an additional 5 months so that we can really help them integrate this into their life. The basic camp is going to be really powerful for them, and then it will be up to you to kind of reinforce what they've learned and how to use their powers. But the Training Plus and the Master Class, I will be working with them, and the other trainers will be working with them for an additional 5 months to really get that into their habit life. So I'm ready for questions.
Okay. Wait,
thank you all. That was really great. You did good work.
Do you want to say a little bit more about where they go? Because this is where you've landed the parents in week 10, but there's still 6 more weeks to go. Did you already say enough about where we go from this?
Well, we actually identify and narrow it down to 1 superpower that they're going to be working on, and then we shift everything into what it means to be of service, and we really focus on how to do acts of service, how to do them like a superhero as opposed to a hero. Both have value, but it's different to be a superhero. And then we get into the fun stuff of actually developing a persona around that, a superhero name, and a look, and something that they can carry with them to remind them of their powers. So if they're in situations where they feel that timidity or fear or what have you, in a certain, it can help them feel that strength, which is the table again. And then just politeness around being a powerful person. You don't necessarily go willy-nilly out into the world and help everybody without first having a certain form to that. You help people if they want to be helped, and it's a very powerful lesson.
You ready for questions?
Ready for questions.
Okay, so Erica asked, will you do this camp again in the future? And I answered on the chat, yes, we plan to do it in the summer of 2019. And I also added possibly in the fall, but
don't know about that. But
okay.
but there are 3 more camps coming. So this is the Violet Crown camp. In the Light of Olympus, we're going to get more into developing. This one's very much about service. The Light of Olympus is very much about personal development, about working on yourself. And then we get into the 3rd camp, which has to do more with community. And then the 4th camp, which has to do with more of those threshold experiences. So those will be more fun.
Next summer would be the Light of Olympus camp.
Yep.
But the Violet Crown will also be offered.
The Violet Crown will also be offered. So if you want to start from the beginning, but in order to do the Light of Olympus, you need to do the Violet Crown.
Okay, Terra Femina asks, like what you guys do, been listening for years now, is a payment plan possible? And I'll answer this. Absolutely. For one of the camps, there's a payment. For the master camp, there's a payment plan that's available already on the website. But just email us and we're happy to work with you. I'm going to post the email here.
I think you heard that, but email us if you're looking for a way to creatively take care of your side.
Now, will you get the next question while I post this?
Yes, the payment plan. How does this work with families with multiple children? I would love my 7-year-old and 9-year-old to do it. I'm looking at the basic camp. Would I need to purchase 2?
Oh, and I missed a question.
Yeah.
Stacy, I'm coming back to your question.
my understanding is that if you're staying with the basic camp, you can just do everything all together.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the training plus and the master class, which are very much about the individual.
So yes, and can I say more about that? Mm-hmm. In the basic camp, all of the content is there, all of the downloads are there, all of the worksheets are there, and families are welcome to print as many copies as they like, watch the videos together, and have the experience together. So that's the best option.
You can do it all together with the basic camp.
There are some families that want to be in the interactive camps, and they just have to make separate logins for each of those children. So when those children want to post or share or engage, they have their separate logins. I mean, of course they can watch, but because the camp is so individualized, that each child will want to have a separate login.
And then also there was a question from before from Stacy.
Yeah, thank you. That's the one I missed.
That said, there has been a lot of focus on the experience of children ages 8, 9, and 10. My child is almost 12. Is the camp appropriate for him as well?
Absolutely. You just experienced a version of what the children are going to experience. Now, I talked about how that big experience that happens at 8, 9, and 10, where they're taking a step away, is an even bigger one at 12. So the better we can honor the children and give them opportunities to become more self-reliant at these pivotal moments in their life, at 3.5, at 6, 7, at 9, 10, and then 12, 13, real big one, then we're empowering them. We're giving them the opportunities to really identify where their ability to have agency in the world lies. So definitely appropriate.
So Diana Cluth wrote, do you have to pay for each login for sharing the basic camp enrollment? So with basic camp, you register once,
right,
and then that's it.
Just one registration.
And then you can share, because there's your family will basically it's a DIY experience. You get the content, you get the videos, and then you do the rest with your whole family.
So you as the parent will be working with however many children that you're working with. With the Training Plus and the Master Class, you have access to the trainers and will work with the children. But with the basic camp, it's all the prepackaged, the videos and the curriculum and the downloads, and you can make as many copies of those as you need.
And will the printouts be available up front? Someone is thinking about going on vacation and they won't have access to a printer for a few weeks. So
alas, not up front, but those are getting dripped out training by training. They'll all be available once it's over with. So if you want to come back and do it after your vacation, you can do it that way, right?
Yep, that's totally right. And then Chris says, can you please explain a little more about what the interactive meetups would entail for the Training Plus?
Right. So there's 2 for the Training Plus and there's 4 for the Master Class, and we have them timed at certain points where I'm going to be able to interact with the children so that they can tell me what their experience has been.
And we're going to poll, once we have our enrollment, we're going to poll folks for the best days and times.
Right. We'll figure out what's best because we have California and we have Iceland and all and beyond. We have Australia. So we're going to try to find the best times and make it work for as many people as possible. But the children or the parent representing the child will be able to ask questions. We'll be able to offer up what their experience was, things that maybe surprised them, and myself and the other trainers will be able to interact with them in that way.
And it'll be a forum like this one.
It'll look just like this.
Likely
right?
a conferencing forum.
Right.
Okay. I hope, yeah, let's see if that answers the question.
Because children are different learners. Some will really, be able to take what they need from a piece of paper reading it. Others really need to see the video and take in the sound of the words and my gestures. Others are interactive. They like to be able to kind of voice and have a response. And so we're trying to meet all the different learning styles.
So we have a question about, are the Training Plus and Masterclass better geared toward a certain age?
No, they'll all be right there. Now, the masterclass, of course, is individual. So I will adapt my interaction to the age of the child. I will be working very differently with the 12-year-old than I will be with the 6-year-old. The Training Plus is more groups. And so it is my belief that I can teach in a 6-year-old manner and then give content for the 9-year-olds that get them very stimulated. But I can talk to you as if you're a 6-year-old, and that will not be offensive. You will find it soothing. You will find it gentle. That's the only difference. I speak slower and I give very specific examples, but in the downloads and in the directions are opportunities for advanced campers to really challenge themselves. So it's adaptive.
That's great. Eloise says, I have a 12-year-old that adores these stories. It seems she's going to be challenged even though she is older. Is that accurate? It sounds like
yes.
Yes.
Yes. This is did you measure your own experience of what you had, you adults, through this? Now, you're adults. You've lived a life, but to recall and to really look at and really take in the striving part of your life brings benefit. Well, that's throughout. And so as complicated, the curriculum is developed, and by the way, it's developed in collaboration with all the trainers, especially Meredith in Vermont, who has been teaching for decades. And so she knows the difference. She has taught 6-year-olds, she has taught 9-year-olds, she has taught 12-year-olds. I have too, but she's had more experience with that. So we know how to adapt these things for all these ages.
Oh, you're next, aren't you?
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you. Melissa says, hello, my daughter is 6.5, already listened to Violet Crown, but is she too young? I think it's a similar question. Seems like complex words. She has been in Waldorf, does not read at all. Of course, I will be with her. So again, you know well how to adapt content to make it engaging for a range of ages.
Now, the Violet Crown stories were written with 9-year-olds in mind, 9 and up. Children are different. Some children who are 6 years are in a space that a lot of 9-year-olds are in. That's just how it is. So you, the parent, know your child, and you can try out. For some children, the stories are not appropriate for a 6.5-year-old, but we have made this summer camp curriculum work for 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds. So it's going to take you to be the one to really be able to assess your child and know what they're up for.
Oh, this is a good question. It says, if our eldest decides she wants to do the master, can we enroll her after she begins doing the basic with her sister? Can we join late?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the way that the system is set up.
With the basic, or will she be behind? Those are important too.
Yeah.
So enrollment closes on a week from Friday.
Yeah, and I think whatever it is at that point is what it's going to be.
So unfortunately, she can't enroll later. However, it's all the same content outside of the Training Plus and the Master Camp have expanded experiences.
Right. So
we cap the Master one caps at 25 kids, and I think we'll hit that, next week. My intention is to fill that camp, so we won't be able to open it after that point, because we can't give that kind of focused attention to a cohort that's much bigger.
It's a lot of time for the kids that are in the master class. So 25 is definitely the top end that we'll be able to do.
Eloise has a great question. Can you upgrade if you already paid for basic? Absolutely.
Yes, you can upgrade. I think they just have to contact us, right?
Yeah, just contact us and we'll figure that process out.
And that's how to be super at Sparkle Stories.
Make a button to do that. It's how to be super at sparklestories.com.
Great.
So yeah,
make a little button.
Post that again. Yeah, I make a little button. I'm wondering if we're using the Teachable website, and I'm wondering if there's a way to do that. But Eloise, yes, we'll make that happen. And email us, and we can make it happen. So Melissa says, and will they all be live, or can the families choose the time of day to slot in the How to Be Super Camp? Excited. So you can explain the live versus non-live,
right?
And also the live is going to be recorded and.
Right. So all of the trainings are pre-recorded videos that you can experience whenever you'd like. Now, if you do it on the days in which we drip them out, I will be referring to Mondays and Thursdays when they are dripped out. And we give enough time in between the Monday and Thursday and the Thursday to the Monday to be able to accomplish the mission for that particular day. So that's all pre-recorded and all the downloads are ready. All the curriculum is ready. Now the live in the Training Plus, there'll be 2 of those, one in the first half and one in the second half. And with the master class, it's every 2 weeks. There'll be a live interactive video. And then with a master class, of course, you have one-on-one time with me where we really go deeper with that. And that takes place after the 8 weeks are up.
Can you tell that we haven't even talked about where to sign up.
Oh, okay.
I posted it, but can you say it out loud if you want to sign
Courses
up?
Sparkle. Courses, like I'm taking a course in school. Courses sparklestories.com. There's no at in there?
No at.
Okay. All right. Courses.sparklestories.com. That's where you go and you'll see the 3 options. And I think there's a video for each one that describes the differences. I think I've gone over that though.
Okay, cool. Dan says, we run a traditional summer camp, lots of fun, but our youngest sparkler, age 12, is kind of a camp orphan in the summer. This will be a great addition to her joy and development. Thanks.
Yes. Oh, and you should know that each of these missions that they do, those can take as long as you want to make them. So this can be like a summer camp where your children are involved for long periods of time, developing these maps or what have you. It's very flexible as far as what it means to accomplish a particular task.
Last question that I see, Amy has asked, if my child is struggling with a specific issue, should I give you a heads up they are doing the masterclass, or should I let things take their course?
The fact that you asked that, I would say, go ahead and give us a heads up. I would follow your instinct with that. I think either way is fine. If you want, I'm with the one-on-one. I'm a trained, perceptive person, so I may pick up on that. But if it's your instinct to let us know beforehand, that's fine.
And the last thing I'm seeing is there is a call for camp T-shirts that's being seconded and thirded and fourth.
Wow! Yeah.
I know. Can you see the T-shirts? We have T-shirts over here, and in the corner, those are T-shirts that we.
Can you get the Goose Eye one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because we do have camp T-shirts.
No, but
it's
these
just
are
a
not
different
for
camp.
Camp.
Yeah.
We have camp. These are T-shirts that are offline now that we no longer sell. But I'm going to do a flash sale on at some point soon.
Pretty fun.
Pretty fun.
That's a great idea. So we'll talk about that.
T-shirts, yes, please. Even just an image that we can print
iron
and transfer would be amazing. It'd be cool if they could print their own icons.
Because making the icons is actually a part of this. They're going to be developing a symbol. And so to give them a tutorial on how to turn that into a T-shirt, that would be very interesting. That's a great, thank you for that.
Here's another question. LS says, for the level above basic, people should expect to watch the videos at a certain time since they are interactive. Yes. And so, yes, that would be ideal. And we're going to try to schedule it at a time when most people can make it, but you can always go back and watch it again.
You can get the content and learn from the other children's experience. But if your child wants to interact, it's going to have to be at that particular time.
And LS, I will say that the forums are interactive 24/7. I mean, we don't have people on 24/7, but at any point you can go on and post in the forums underneath each lesson, and David and a trainer will be responding. So there's always a possibility for interaction. Yeah. Okay, cool. Any other questions?
All right, all.
It's almost 8:15.
8:15. We've had a great time. So thank you for carving out the time. I really enjoyed this. I could feel you all over the world participating. And I hope that some of you decide to join us for the 8-week camp that starts on the 18th. Remember that is the deadline.
No, 16th. Friday the 16th is the deadline.
Oh, Friday the
We
16th,
close
not the
the
18th.
Friday before the camp starts on Monday.
Ooh, so it's the 16th. So you have your date. And we will do it again. So if it's not going to happen this year, it will happen next. And I'm hearing a rumor that it might happen in the fall. So thanks all. Great connecting with you. Until next time, for myself and Lisbeth and Sienna. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.